It's like riding a bullet. We look at an aircraft that breaks all the rules, and the Air Force that came before the Wright brothers, and yes, it really worked. The flying car flies. There is lots happening in flying, in fact so much so that the fashion show I mentioned last week is being pushed back again. I know, you all have your fingers on your keyboards ready to tell me I get it all wrong, but you know what? Bring it on! I can take it! Anyway, that'll have to be next week now. Let's start with the Sikorsky. They're about to make military helicopters so easy to fly that even your grandma could do it. Settling a Black Hawk on a steep mountainside covered in snow in a raging gale would be a breeze, even for her. The firm have been testing a system that uses a radar to create a 3D picture of what's going on underneath the helicopter, even with dust being thrown everywhere. It then settles the helicopter down on the ground for you. You also get enhanced vision, so as a pilot you can make tiny adjustments to the landing spot. So, next time your gran wants to land her Black Hawk in her garden, all she needs to do is press a button and sit back. Should be pretty entertaining for the neighbours. If you're going to fly an aircraft of any type, the last thing you want is something between you and the controls. And that's particularly true if it's a Swedish porn actress and you're filming. The FAA felt the case, which I should point out at this stage is only alleged to have happened in the helicopter over San Diego, would indicate that the pilot was obstructed from the controls. The pilot will be appearing in court, where presumably the judge will insist that all the evidence is shown. Naturally, it would have been so much easier in a Black Hawk. Who set up the first Air Force? No, really, I mean, who do you think did? Was it, I'll give you some options, A, America, B, Britain, C, Russia, or D, Japan? You can phone a friend if you want. But what do you think? In fact, it was none of them. It was the French. And the man responsible was this man, Napoleon Bonaparte. He had syphilis and he was very short. He may not have been able to put his hat on the right way, but according to a new book called Napoleon's Air Force, he was the first man to do it. I admit this might seem a little odd since he fought more wars in 100 years before the Wright brothers managed their first short hop. But in fact, according to author Garrett C. Van Dyke Jr., he actually used a balloon corps in campaigns and even considered sending the force to invade England by presumably floating over the Channel. It worked a little, but the idea of an invasion never took off. There seemed to be a lot of hot air in that highly inflated idea. Okay, I'll stop, I promise. Eurocrats, that's bureaucrats in Europe if you didn't know, think flying is different in different places. So much so that ESA, the European safety body, is proposing that anyone who trains at a US flying school and then tries to get a job in Europe will need to recertify. Not surprisingly, AOPA are fighting the idea, and we hope the paper pushers lose. Shooting down a UAV has got to be a mixture of, boyish pleasure and anticlimax. After all, you spend your whole career getting ready for that dogfight or bombing run where all hell will be breaking loose, and then all you get to do is shoot a UAV out of the sky. That's what happened over Iraq recently, about 60 miles northeast of Baghdad. Officials say it was flying in Iraqi airspace for more than an hour before they engaged it. In other words, blew it to pieces. Did you get our flying car update last week that Rick very hastily released on the Terrafugia Flying Car? Well, if not, it actually works. I told you last year about its performance, hitting motorway or freeway speeds on the ground while doing 115 miles per hour in the sky. So I bet what you most want to know is how it handles. Well, the test pilot was a retired US Air Force Colonel, Phil Matier. The guys at Terrafugia let us use their footage and we've mixed it together so you can see more of what's happening.
Hi, I'm Phil Matier. I'm the test pilot for the Terrafugia Transition, which you see here on our first flight. And this is to fellow pilots to give you a little idea of what the first flight was like and what this vehicle's like. This was on the 5th of March, about 7:30 in the morning at Plattsburgh International Airport. Now, let me take you through and talk to you about the vehicle and what's happening. If you notice, 4 wheels on the ground, it's a car and a plane. It's actually very stable on the runway. Pilots are going to love this vehicle, taxiing around, running down the runway. We've been able to test above 90 miles an hour on the ground in a light sport aircraft, and so we're getting a lot of our test points. We've already gotten them before this point. We've all of the flight controls we've gone through and made better even at this point, so watch as it goes by. Just a real smooth, stable vehicle on the runway. Now, those of you who know about canard airplanes are expecting an aggressive rotation. And we were aware of that being a possibility, but you're going to see that doesn't happen. There it comes up smoothly in the air, and actually I'm able to correct it very quickly. I'm expecting it, so this flight, this is a runway flight. That was our test plan, was intentionally to keep it within the runway environment, so it's just to make a smooth transition to land again. And as you can see, the notable part of this is just how smooth everything is. Just watch, I'll run it at full speed. I am making aileron inputs there. Everything is so smooth and so controlled straight down the runway that everybody's asking me, well, do you even use the ailerons? Stability is always a question on your first flight. It was just rock solid. The controls were responded just like any normal airplane. In fact, I made the comment that it was remarkable for being unremarkable. It just flew like a really nice airplane. The touchdown with 2,000 feet remaining, and came to a halt in another 500 feet. Having car brakes, landing roll after touchdown is not a big issue. One of the things about this airplane that I think is going to be a really good feature, and we'll prove it more in the future flights, is being able to land above stall speed. Because it's a car configuration, the wheels are behind the center of gravity, so once they touch down, the airplane is going to smoothly come down to the car position, and it won't rotate. The rotation speed is 25 knots above stall speed, so as long as we are on the ground below rotation speed, we're in the car mode again, and you saw how stable it was. So those kind of landings, fly-on landings above stall speed, very controlled and very stable, I think people are going to really like landing this airplane.
That's all we have for footage so far, but we hope to see a lot more coming from them in the future. I can't remember if I mentioned this, but Mooney have done it again, setting what they claim is a new world speed record for the Acclaim Type S. It was flown from Minneapolis to New Orleans at an average speed of 333 knots. That's 380 miles per hour or 616 kilometers per hour. The whole journey of just over 1,000 miles took just 2 hours and 43 minutes, thanks to a tailwind that added another 25 knots. Oh, and he was flying at 25,000 feet. That may not sound fast if you consider aircraft generally, but this was done with just one prop engine. We were browsing through YouTube the other night and came across this. It really conjured up the feeling of flying at night, so here's a quick clip. It was filmed in a PA-28, so very similar to the one Rick flew, but this was at Tallinn Airport in Estonia. A great way to beat the rush hour traffic on your way home from work. Check out Avia Films production on YouTube, or just have a look on our blog at our website, where we've embedded the whole thing and all the links. By the way, we said it last year, but we're going to be introducing some member-only benefits soon on the website. It'll still be completely free, but if you want to know all about it, just sign up to our weekly email on the website and we'll give you the details as they arrive. There used to be a rule. If you wanted to travel fast in life, you had to buy an aeroplane, and an expensive one at that. Once you filled up its tank, you could hope to get around 100 knots, or 115 miles per hour, roughly. Then, obviously, you would upgrade, pay a huge amount more, and get something that would give another 20 or 30 knots. But because the airframe and engine weren't always the most efficient, you also had to sell your house to pay for each trip. Those were the rules, because the rules have changed. It may look like a tiny light sport aircraft, but let me give you some figures. Now, this thing will cruise at 147 knots. That's a staggering 117 miles per hour, not on full throttle, but just cruising along at 3/4 of the throttle. Now, as I said, the normal price of speed is fuel. Not here. At that speed, you'll be burning just 17.8 litres per hour, or 4.7 gallons. So if you do the math, that's 36 miles per gallon, which is 10 miles per gallon more than the Porsche 911, while going 2.5 times faster than a Porsche that's going to be trapped by the speed limit below. In fact, it's so good, you actually get much better miles per gallon pretty much every 4x4 on the road. Plus, you get there quicker. Okay, it's going to cost double the amount than a 4x4, but as we've said in the past, few people fly every day, so if you share it with some friends, it becomes the cost of a regular car. So, okay, what's the downside, I hear you say? Well, the only thing we can see so far is the seats. Sure, they've been made to look good, but just how comfortable are they? I've never sat in one, so hand on heart, I can't tell you. but I do wonder just how flat my rear end would be after sitting there for nearly 6 hours, as this thing has huge fuel tanks. And the aircraft does look like something experimental, which always raises the question, will your partner want to get in it? So perhaps the analogy is that the virus is like travelling on a bullet. Not necessarily the most comfortable looking place to be for a long journey, but then why worry if you get there so quickly? Finally, a quick reminder that if you're frustrated by watching the show online, then just download it. It's on iTunes, it's completely free, and there are links on the website. You've been watching fullflap.tv. I'm Vicky Farah.